the especially as you're not like constantly live streaming the same thing like in a row.
Yeah. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Tome Raider. Bit of a rebrand this week, based on the fact that I didn't telling. Well, I'm Ollie. I'm here with Dan. How you doing, Dan? First and foremost.
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
I'm pretty good, pretty good. And yeah, and the audio works, so we're away.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Monty Bird's fingers.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't announce that this stream was going out to anyone. I'll do that now. But while I'll explain the bit of a rebound, this is now Tome Raider Classics, where we read like fundamental works like Sherlock Holmes. I have a copy of I have nice cloth-bound editions of the Iliad and the Odyssey back there that we may get to one day. You know, that
Yes.
kind of thing. The classics
Yeah,
of literature.
Yeah, you're more likely to find things that are in the public domain in this one.
Yeah.
And then
And
but
we're
will be
alternating weeks with regular Tome Raider, which will be more modern fare.
yes. Which we shall be starting well, next week in theory with starting the Animorph series.
Well, yeah, so like those are pretty short books. There are a lot of them. I read a couple of those in school. They were surprisingly good for what they are. Like, well, I won't oversell it just to spoil it for Dan, but I think he'll like them. But also, unless there was something Dan wanted us to read particularly, I was going to suggest Discworld.
Yeah.
Because
there are some things I have suggested at the time, like well, as I would say, I've been reading a lot, reading some Lex Croucher and a lot of Alice Oseman in the last couple of years. So it'd be stuff like that as well put forward, and then there's the Gaslit Empire trilogy as well.
oh, those are good.
Yeah, but we will go with Animorphs and start there.
Because
Which, admittedly, by the number of them, should keep us going for about 2 years. If we just went from the start to the end, as there's 54 of them, and if it's every other week. Yes, but anyway.
Yeah. But we'll go with that.
Yes, but for now, we are here for Sherlock Holmes.
Hawks Live with Talk Shows and Podcast. The detective Sherlock Holmes in the 22nd century. Is he fucking counter programming? No, I don't think he's doing that. I think that's just a coincidence. Nobody watches. But like, we have no audience for him to steal. Yeah. Joke's on you.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, he has no audience for it to steal. Seb. Seb is all there is to steal, realistically.
And all respect to Seb, I don't think they want him.
We do.
We do.
Yeah.
Oh. We joke, of course.
Yeah. But yes, so this week's Adventures of Sherlock Holmes, the Priory School, Black Peter, and Charles Augustus Milverton.
Not to be confused with Blue Peter or Black Betty.
Yeah. Yeah, bam, bam, whoa, Black Betty.
Oh.
Yeah, with her bramble jam. I know that's not the line, but it fits perfectly in the nonsense that follows.
Yeah. Yeah, let's get on to discussing some books, shall we? That is the purpose of this show, and we're already 5 minutes in.
Yeah.
uh,
So book.
book. Right. So, The Adventure of the Priory School.
Yes. We start this story, like many others, in fact, with Holmes and Watson sitting in Baker Street.
Yeah. A man barges in and accosts them and demands milk and biscuits. That's a reduction of what happens, but
Yeah, a man who is in much panic comes in and collapses, and Watson diagnoses it as complete exhaustion, and he goes, "No, no, I shall be fine again with milk and biscuits."
yeah,
It's yeah. His the line is, but I cannot recollect anything more sudden and startling than the first appearance of Thornycroft Huxtable, M.A., Ph.D., etc. His card, which seemed too small all to carry the weight of his distinctions, preceded him by only a few seconds. So basically, this is a guy who is, like a QI elf, is educated to within an inch of his life. And
yeah,
and possibly has a couple of sort of orders on the end of his name, a la sort of like
yeah. They
royal
said
orders. Yeah,
his card preceded him, which couldn't. Oh, what was the line? Which was inadequate for his honorifics or something like that. I don't know. I don't have the book in front of me right now.
yeah.
Oh.
Too small to carry the weight of his academic distinctions.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. So they've got this man who's clearly in a panic, and Holmes deduces that he's come down from Maccles Maccleston, isn't it? Oh God, brain's already failing me. Yeah, Maccleston. It's come by the earliest thing, and there's been a problem. There's been bothering him for 3 days because he has 3 days of hair growth on his chin. And well, he's clearly exhausted, and his clothes show signs of having been up for a few hours already. Once he calms down, has his milk and cookies.
Yeah.
We learn he is Santa. No, not really, but it just suddenly popped into my mind.
That would be funny.
Yeah,
Someone's
we
killed
learn.
Rudolph, and I need you to bring the murderer to justice.
Yeah, we learn that he is the headmaster of a school. He says it's slightly experimental, I think, but they don't go into the way to sort of explain why. I imagine it's his curriculum and teaching standards, but given this is the Victorian era, the cane is probably still foremost amongst correctional measures. It's because,
Yeah.
frankly, it was within our grandparents' lifetime. So, yeah, he's coming and he's sort of like take it as a sign of utmost respect that he's doing well. That Lord Saltier, which is spelled dangerously close to satire,
Yeah.
has come to become one of his students. Lord Saltier is 10, by the way. He is not actually like that, but he already has the title of a lord as a 10-year-old. Who is the Duke of the Duke of a son? He is the son of a very important duke in the area who, the Duke of Holderness, who Sherlock digs out his sort of memoirs on people, reads it out, and is basically this man has been every job in the UK government, including Prime Minister, or sort of like, or near enough Prime Minister.
Yeah.
Sort of well regarded and stuff. So the fact that the 10-year-old Lord Saltire has been kidnapped from his care has rather sent him into a tizzy. And Sherlock is like, why didn't you come to me 3 days ago? It was just sort of like because the Duke does not like his affairs to be made public. He wants to avoid the scandal, like basically every other Victorian gentleman we ever meet in these stories. They either want to avoid the scandal or they are so scandalous they do not care. There is no in between. There's no person who's okay with a little scandal if it leads to something better.
Yeah. And I like how the guy says, I think it's this one where the guy says, this case is, I guarantee you won't find any case more worthy of your talents, like Sherlock Holmes hasn't assisted actual royalty. Mind you, that I suppose they wouldn't know that.
Yeah, it's because Sherlock does keep quiet about that. I believe they mentioned him helping the Pope again in this one. Oh, it's one of the stories this week. The Pope him helping the Pope gets mentioned again, and then this is the one where it makes the most sense. But it's interesting to note that the person who is mentioning mentioning that you will not find a more interesting case is not the member of the aristocracy. He actually seems he actually seems to not assume that he is the highest station that Holmes has held. It is entirely possible he moves in circles where he actually learns that nobility, that royalty has been helped by Holmes. So we'll not simply assume that he is the highest office the man has ever dealt with.
Yeah.
Part of the reason why they didn't come to Holmes before this, other than the wanting to avoid a scandal, is that the local coppers think that they had actually traced the boy, and that he and an older man, because a schoolmaster was also missing, a German professor, along with his bicycle, and they thought they found witnesses that placed them getting onto a train and then locate for Liverpool. It turns out that no, they were mistaken. It was just a man and a boy on a train to Liverpool.
Yeah.
It wasn't the Lord and the Professor. But Holmes is just sort of like, well, this has grabbed enough of my interest. We're going north. We'll come back with you on the next train.
We're to the north.
Yes. Yes, and yeah, it's when they get back up to the north that they learn that it wasn't the boy on the train, or just before they head up. I can't remember which one offhand. Sherlock does bring up the question of, was it the boy's estranged mother, because his sympathies were with his mother, and she and the Duke split up before he went to the boarding school. But no, there is no evidence, and the inquiries have already been made to that effect. So yeah, or that's he asked the Duke that to the Duke's secretary. He is sort of not particularly keen on having Sherlock there, and the Duke doesn't seem it at first, but then goes, well, the man is here and he's determined to stay in the area for a few days. We might as well use him. Because at the suggestion of returning to London, he's like, you know what, I could do with some fresh country air for a few days. Says the man who absolutely despises fresh country air.
Yeah. So Watson will know something's up.
yeah, and the others have sort of put it together of he's going to investigate whether we clue him in or not, so we might as well use him.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and the Duke has also put up a prize of a reward of £5,000 for a person who returns his son to him, and an additional 1,000 for naming the people who kidnapped him.
Yep. And
And
if
while
you'll just
Sherlock,
give me a second on the inflation calculator. Sorry, what were
yeah,
those figures again?
5,000 and 1,000 for a total of 6,000.
Okay, so 1905. £6,000 in 1905 equates to £647,677 and 69 pence. Nice.
Yes, nice indeed. It's just sort of like now Sherlock isn't driven by money, but it does get brought up, and
I mean, money may not
yeah,
buy happiness, but it can take care of a lot of the other stuff.
but it can buy cocaine.
Oh, yes. Which is legal in this time.
Yes.
Thank God
And
we
the
live in
standard-
this time.
Oh, what a yeah, what a time to be alive! And there's also boxers fighting kangaroos in rings as well at this in this time period. Not necessarily in London, but it is happening out in the Empire.
Yeah.
Bully!
Bully! Oh.
What a fantastic time to be alive! Oh gosh, how things change.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what else was there? So Holmes starts doing his investigations, and
Yeah. Sorry, I forgot his rank.
the Duke.
The Duke. I thought it was the Duke, but that's yeah. The Duke having conceded that since he's here and he already knows too much, they might as well use him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And Holmes works out that the kidnappers could not have used the road outside the school or gone along there to kidnap him. So north and south, south seems less likely. So north, and they go out investigating. Uh, just before they go out investigating, and that evening, because they go investigating the next day, they find out that a group of travelers, or gypsies as they're referred to in the text, have been found to have the boy's school cap and have thus been arrested for kidnapping him, despite the fact they don't have the boy. Oh yeah, and that's basically all we learn on their fate in the entire story. There's no addendum at the end to say that they were let free for being innocent and simply having the cap. So bit of prejudice of the time slipping through there.
Mm.
But it does affirm Sherlock's belief that they went north across the moors in the area.
Yeah.
He also determined that the child was fully dressed when they went, whereas the German professor seemed to go out only partially dressed, i.e., he didn't have his socks or a shirt on, or like a normal shirt on for it. There's which Holmes suggests that the child left of their own accord, and the teacher sort of spotted what was happening and followed.
Yeah.
Because one of the theories was that the professor kidnapped him. Yeah, it was just sort of like Holmes like, no, doesn't seem that way.
In the audiobook, I can't remember the line, but there was something along the lines of this German which is said, and the word German was said with such emphasis that, like, I'm trying to find it in the ebook version now, just in case it's in bold and italicized.
Yeah, I didn't.
Here is
Yeah,
hiding. Yeah. No.
yeah.
But
The,
unfortunately, that comes to a bit of a dead end because they find him dead.
yeah, they follow and find tracks, and they find a bicycle track which is disturbed by uh cow prints, and but he determines it's not the professor's bike because it has a patch on it. But then they find the second patch, which they determine is his, and like the heaviness of it shows like the direction it's going on and when he's having to lean over the handlebars. And that does lead him to the professor's body, where he got brained,
Yeah.
essentially. So
Like,
someone from behind him just hit him with something heavy.
yeah, and he went like he while he was going very fast on a bicycle without a helmet.
Yeah,
It
yeah, but
seems.
the bike helmet wasn't a thing at this point. Frankly, the military helmet was barely a thing at this point. I mean, to just sort of like as to it actually being able to stop what it was meant to stop. But yeah. So a note is sent back, and Sherlock and Watson continue on to a local pub, or was it a pub? I
Well,
think it was
it's
a pub.
some sort of establishment. What I think
An inn.
probably an inn. Yeah.
Yeah, inn rather than a pub, where you could get drinks, but it wasn't its primary focus.
Yeah.
As such,
And
and Sherlock starts making a limp at this point, which immediately tells you, if you've read enough of these stories, is that we're probably approaching the wrong uns.
yeah. And the proprietor comes out and he's not best pleased to see them. And Sherlock's like, I don't suppose you have such a thing as a carriage in your stables? No, I can hardly put my foot to the ground. Don't put it to the ground. But I can't walk. Well then, hop.
Yeah, the man is doing everything he can to sort of get rid of Sherlock, and Sherlock manages to persuade them by the offering of a sovereign to borrow a couple of horses to go and visit the Duke, who is a couple of miles away. And he seems inclined, because the money is probably a lot for what the service is
Yeah.
being offered. Holmes inquires repeatedly after a bicycle, and he is adamant that they don't have one. While they're having a bite to eat before they move on, because they've been at this since dawn, and it's implied to be gone midday by this point. I mean, so they have a small bit inside, like they're imposing upon him for a bite to eat on top of this. Holmes is just sort of like talking with Watson about it. It's like, how do the tracks? And it's just like, Watson's like, oh, they're obscured by cattle tracks. And then Holmes sort of goes, oh, I am such an idiot. And then does sort of like, do you recall seeing in any of the sort of like tracks like this? Makes a shape, or like this, another shape, and then or this one, and does a third one on. And Watson's like, I can't be sure. It was like, I'm sure it's a very unusual cow that gallops, trots, and I can't remember what the third one is. Canters, thank you. Anyway, it's just sort of like, what? Also, the Holmes is just sort of like, we've got to examine the horses. His limp is marvelously gone at this point.
Yep. I mean, quick recovery.
Yeah. and they go out to examine the feet of the horses in the stable at the back that they've been promised the use of. Sherlock notices something, but he doesn't say it just yet because they're interrupted by the proprietor, who tells them to go and essentially chases them off.
Yeah.
So Holmes, as soon as they're round the corner and out of sight, Holmes basically leads them to double back and keeps an eye on the place for a few hours until it goes dark. In which point, at some point during this, the secretary comes herring along on a bicycle and comes into the place. And he's looking panicked. And Holmes Holmes is like, okay, now's our time, Watson. We must look into that window up there with the lights in it. And sort of like, no sooner as he stood on Watson's shoulders to look in, as he coming down, and was like, right, we'll continue on to the Duke's. Because he's already put everything together.
Yeah.
And he
like,
is,
this is Sherlock doing his like usual drama queen big reveal dramatization.
Yeah.
But you can't begrudge him that, I suppose. It makes for good reading.
Yeah, it makes for good reading, and it's a fair thing for the sort of like adaptations and such. Indeed, Death in Paradise has sort of borrowed the bringing of the suspects together and revealing everything in front of everyone and then arresting them there. It's one of its more charming features, and I quite like Death in Paradise. But anyway, they go to the Duke, and he's there, and his secretary's back, and Holmes is like, I would be much happier to speak if your secretary wasn't there, and sends him out. And it's sort of like Holmes is like, I'd like that check now, please, for the full 6,000.
Because I've worked everything out.
And Rose is sort of like, and who's got my son then? He says, why, you do, sir.
I accuse. Who do you accuse? I accuse you.
Yeah. And then we finally start to get the explanation, which was it turns out the secretary is actually the Duke's firstborn son, but he is a bastard, as in illegitimate. Though from his behaviour, the other meaning also stands.
Yes, indeed.
And the Duke, and he had tricked his younger half sibling into coming out that night to get into a strange carriage and essentially get himself kidnapped by inserting a note saying that his mother was the one who had organised this, in with a letter that the Duke had sent to his son, because he was the one who physically delivered the post and all that. Because he was essentially trying to pressure his father into going against sort of conventions and things and changing. It's not a will, it's sort of like, I think it's a law, as it were, so that he could inherit as the firstborn, even though he was illegitimate. But and he'd hired the local tavern keeper as a place to keep, innkeeper as a place to keep them. Turns out he was a bit of a wrong, and then he was the one who murdered the professor, who saw a 10-year-old kid climb out the window and get into a strange carriage, in which he thundered after them on his bicycle, half-dressed.
I mean, as you would in that situation.
Yeah. But so he got killed by the one working with them. And when the secretary learnt that the professor was dead, because he didn't actually know they were dead, and he panicked and went to them after having confessed everything that had happened to his father. who then went to see his son, who was being held captive, to check he was all right. Right, and he'd agreed to give the conspirator, the murderer, 3 days to get away before reclaiming his son, and then bringing him home, basically, which would also essentially give his illegitimate child time to get his own defences in place, or get his affairs in order, that sort of thing, but not as like he's about to die.
Yeah.
And he's desperate for Holmes to not reveal this scandal. So he's just sort of like, so that's a check for 12,000 then. And it was just like, no, just the 6. But it won't be the scandal can be avoided if you meet certain conditions, and in which there are 2 of them. Holmes also reveals he's already shot off a telegram, because there was actually a few hours in between these 2 things, because he came the next morning to the police, who was already arrested the murderer on his way to trying to get out the country. So he's already ahead of them there. Reuben Hayes is his name.
Yeah.
Yeah. Holmes did, though James, the secretary, Holmes had missed that the secretary was the Duke's son. Now, this is normally the sort of thing that Holmes notices quite quickly from a familial resemblance, because it actually came up in Hound of Baskervilles as how they figured out who the wrong one was and why they were doing it.
Yeah.
It's because of a painting of Hugo Baskerville. But yeah, the conditions in turn is that because James has already done this to Lord Saltire, there is no chance that he wouldn't try again, and if there isn't home, and so the influence of your son must be of your firstborn must be removed to protect your heir. It was sort of like,
and he was like, yeah,
the,
obviously.
Arrangements already in place for him to go to Australia. Now, I don't think this is like I'm putting him on the prison ship. This is he's going to end up in Australia as sort of like, you know how they have adventure. The young are meant to have adventures. Yeah, he's going to have one in Australia, and he's going to stay there. And the other condition is that he tries to make amends with his ex-wife, because it turns out the main point of contention to them was the level of influence that his secretary seemingly had over him, which she didn't seem to know that it's because she was. No, she knew. She also resented the fact that A, child out of wedlock from before her, and B, he couldn't say no to said bastard. And so couldn't sort of like deny him anything, which puts a strain on the marriage. But now that's there, and Sherlock basically goes, get the kids' mothers back.
Yeah.
Yeah, so end with that, with Sherlock taking the check saying that he is a poor man.
Yeah.
He's not. He's not exactly rich, but he's not poor either.
No. 221B Baker Street, by all accounts, sounds like a nice place to live.
Yeah, Baker Street is nice nowadays, but I don't know how it was in that time. And Sherlock,
once you get rid of all the tobacco smoke and the cocaine, and the various other drugs,
and also the being set on fire and having a window shot out,
yeah,
as well. And Sherlock's various experiments for chemicals. But Sherlock does have one thing that he hasn't quite solved, which he does ask the Duke about. Because he realized the thing he noticed when he examines the feet of the horses is they had old horseshoes on, but with new nails, which suggested that someone had taken them out and then put them back on. It was sort of like does anything of a horse leaving the footprints of a cow behind mean anything to you? And the Duke stares at him and leads him through a couple of doors to a wing of the house that has been turned into a museum of local history, where there is a set of sort of smugglers' horse hooves made to look like cow hooves to disguise when they would walk across the moors, so they'd think it was just local farmers' animals got out. Out and Holmes is just sort of excellent, and runs his finger along one, and there's a fresh mud comes off on it, and it's just like, excellent, very good. Takes his check and returns to London.
Yeah. So
I,
yeah, this is probably this one is probably the most complete mystery story of the three we'll deal with today. Well, actually, no. Like the only one that arguably isn't is Charles Augustus Milverton, which we'll get to.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just sort of like yeah, it's an interesting one. It's a missing persons case that is somewhat shorter than some of his other ones, I think, because normally they take about, well, once he gets on the case, it's somewhat shorter. But given it takes them 3 days to get him involved, and it takes him 2 and a bit days to solve it, so it's just over 5 days. I think his normal missing persons ones are about a week or so.
Yeah, although the person he's undertaking the case for is the one responsible, so I imagine that put him in, deducing distance reasonably quickly.
Yeah, but also the flip side with modern statistics, for once you reach the 5 day point on a missing person case, the expectation of finding them alive has dropped significantly.
Yeah.
Especially with kidnapped children, the first 48 hours are critical. So the critical 48 hours, Holmes has not even been made aware of the case. For modern forensics, of course.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's an interesting story. That it gives a bit of hey, I can't remember what I was going to say.
Oh. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry. Oh, my throat is playing up as soon as we start streaming, where I've got to talk. It hasn't all day.
Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, it's quite a run of the mill Holmes adventures. It's just sort of like there is a murder, the murderer is caught trying to escape.
Yeah, I do think I do like the horseshoe trick though. That's quite clever.
Yeah, there are a couple of clever bits, and Holmes taking the check is an out of character sort of thing, as sort of confirmed in the next thing of he doesn't tend to take pay in the next story of he doesn't take payments, and indeed it's commented on that it was an unusually large payment of when he does actually take them, because normally when he does, it's a small number, which is sort of referenced in I want to say season 2 of the BBC Sherlock adaptation,
Yeah.
where called in by an old school friend of his, Sherlock, who is like he wants to do the case, and he's there just saying, right, I'll have to charge you my usual fee, 6 figures. And it's just sort of like when leaving, and Watson's just like, you have a usual fee? No, remind me to make one up when I leave.
Yeah.
That's for the banking job one anyway, which is part of why it's so much. But is that Holmes does it for the love of the game, not for the material benefits it would provide. Though he will occasionally take it if it is needed.
Yeah. Well, he also, and this is where the original source and the BBC version differ greatly, he also does it because he's a very compassionate man who wants to help people who the law can't help.
Yes. Yes, and yes, but shall we go on to Black Peter?
Yes.
Bramblejam.
Bramblejam.
Oh, Black Peter. Bramblejam.
Not to be confused with Blue Peter. Does he have a badge?
That is the question. They had to be. A brief aside on Blue Peter. They keep track of those Blue Peter badges better than some companies do their secrets.
Yeah.
Because there are surprising numbers of benefits for having a Blue Peter badge.
Really?
Yeah, it's like in public attractions and stuff. Like you can get money off or free entry and stuff like that, like National Trust sorts of things.
Oh, I didn't know
It does depend on the level of badge you got. Like if it's just the standard blue ship on a white shield, not so much. But there are like higher levels of them, like they give out to people who've done a lot of work for charity and stuff.
Yeah.
I think the rarest is the gold Blue Peter badge.
Bloody hell! I didn't realise they were ranked.
Yeah. This is Britain. Everything is fucking ranked. It's either ranked or is rank. There is no in between.
Anyway, Black Peter.
Bramblejam.
Bramblejam.
Yeah. We start in Baker Street again, but Holmes is not there with them. Not there with Watson when we start the story.
Interestingly, Watson opens by saying, "I've never known my friend to be in better form, both mental and physical, than in '95."
Yeah.
That's 1895, not 1995. He would have been long dead.
Yeah. Well, we would have both been born by that time.
Yes. The Mortal Kombat movie was out in theatres.
Yes.
That's what I associate with the year 1995.
Yeah. Yeah. But what happened is hey, Watson is actually given a bit of a shock because it's relatively early, and Holmes walks in with a massive harpoon under his arm. He's like, good God, you can't be walking through London with that thing. He's just only a short distance. I spent most of this day already in the back of a butcher stabbing a pig repeatedly.
And Watson's just like, all right.
Why? I get to accept there is a reason. I want to know what the reason is, though.
Yeah. There is always method to his madness, but yeah.
Yeah. And he doesn't go fully into it, but he's saying it's just sort of like, it is very hard to stab a man all the way through in a single thrust, or stab a pig all the way through in a single thrust, and it's just sort of like, what relevance does this have? And then we learn of the case because a young detective who admires Sherlock somewhat, but Stanley Hopkins, who is coming to ask Holmes for advice and help, because there is a strange case in the countryside, I believe. A victim called Peter Carey, 50 years old and the former master of the Sea Unicorn of Dundee, a boat, has been found murdered, pinned to a wall by a harpoon in the little shed or small cottage he's built on his land away from the house where he sleeps at night, that he has made to look like a ship's cabin on the inside.
Yeah.
He has a wife and daughter who are, to put it plainly, scared of him. Like the shouting that comes out of that cabin at night is reportedly not is a local sign of fear, and sort of like, and people don't like dealing with Peter Carey.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
we assume that is why Holmes has been stabbing pigs.
Yes.
Dead pigs, I hasten to add. Like,
Yeah,
he didn't just hunt them down.
Yeah, if they're already in the butchers, they're going to be dead.
Yeah. Sorry,
Yeah.
that just conjured up a very funny mental image of Sherlock lying in wait on the moors for pigs with a harpoon.
Yeah. It's just so like, no, you want a boar spear if you're hunting pigs on the moor, not a harpoon. And now I've said this, I'm going to have to finish it, otherwise it will annoy me. Because with the harpoon, the pig can go down it and still potentially kill you. And of course, assuming this pig is more like a wild boar than the traditional pig we see now. It's why the boar spear is not just a spear and has bits sticking out of it. It's to stop the boar pushing itself down and goring the person who stabbed it to death before they themselves die from blood loss from, having a spear go all the way through them.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, whereas a harpoon, it's barbed to make it harder for it to fall out, because it is a weapon for hunting fish and whales specifically, with the size that they're going to be for this.
Yeah.
We're in whaling in the whaling period.
Good lord.
Yeah. Peter Carey, who had the nickname of Black Peter, is is a former ship's captain and owner, the eponymous Sea Unicorn that was mentioned earlier. He's a disliked figure, but the Detective Hopkins, or Inspector Hopkins, comes up and lays out the facts about about the case, which is sailor's cabin. He's applied as many of Holmes's methods as he himself knows, and couldn't find a lot of additional evidence, like no additional footprints to what was expected and stuff like that. But they found a tobacco pouch, sealskin tobacco pouch with ship's tobacco on it, a particularly strong brand or kind, with the initials PC on it, so they assumed it to be his. Though he seldom smoked and there wasn't a pipe in there, so it seems that they had it for.
Yeah, he's described as a
for
Puritan earlier in the passage.
Yeah, it's assumed he has it there for if guests come round.
Yeah.
So he can, like, cigarette, that sort of thing. There's something missing from the shelf, and they also found a small notebook with And there were also 2 dirty glasses and rum out, but there was other alcohols, brandy and whiskey, which were untouched in sort of a drinks cabinet to the side. I'd notebook with the initials JHN and on the front and on the second page CPR, which Holmes reckons is Canadian Pacific Railway on the inside.
Which
because it's
is not CPR as we understand the initials, which would be quite useless in that situation.
Yeah. It's a book full of stock exchange information. And so they assume that the initials on the front are a stockbroker. As oh no, they hadn't. No, I hadn't actually mentioned that, so I was skipping ahead a bit there. And so so Holmes agrees to come with them to Forest Row and examine what's going on. And as they get there and approach the door, Hopkins goes a bit, hang on, someone's tried to break in here, and points to bits that Holmes has probably already spotted, but Watson has not. Not so much.
Yeah. I think, yeah, Holmes has been going by Captain Basil in other parts, and a protege of sorts of his is telling him there were no footprints. Is like, by which you mean you didn't see any? He goes, no, I promise you there weren't any. To which he replies, look, I've never encountered a crime that was committed by a flying man, so as long as the perpetrator was on 2 legs, there would have been some sign of him.
Yeah.
I'm paraphrasing, obviously.
Yeah, so they go in after that, and Holmes determines that something has been taken, even though the burglar has didn't get in. He determines that there's a bit on the shelf where there is less dust than there should be. So a book or possibly a box of some sort has been taken from it. It concludes that the killer's done it. But if the killer's already got what they want, then why are they trying to break in? So they decide to wait for the break-in.
Yeah.
For the guy to return and try again with a better tool. Or which he does that very night. And he gets in, he looks at something and appears to be aghast at what he's looking at. And then he's promptly ambushed and arrested by the 3 men. And turns out to be a man named John Hopley Nelligan, which match the initials on the notebook on the front. And who is the son of a vanished failed banker who came to test a theory using Casey's ship logs. Now, historical point, near enough everyone who could write on the ship was expected to keep a log of some sort. But not sort of a bit like Star Trek's captain's log, chief medical officer's log, but maybe not to the same extent with the lower officers.
Yeah.
Or the lower officers. But any log that was written was meant to be handed over to the company who owned the boat at the end of it. So we can assume that either that's being ignored or the Sea Unicorn wasn't owned by a company but was owned by Peter Casey or Casey or whatever his name is. Black Peter, we'll go with that. For him to still have his logbooks, because it was actually a serious breach if you didn't hand these logbooks over.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was about this. But what John wanted was to prove, because his theory was his father had gone on a voyage and on a yacht bound for Norway, and he believes his father's boat yacht had been driven to the north, driven further north from the North Sea by bad weather, and he had encountered the sea unicorn, and that Kerry would, Black Peter would know what happened to his father. But the months in question in the ship's log where that would have happened, if it did happen, have been torn out, which suggests very much that something did indeed happen, possibly involving this. And his suspicions as to why this would happen is his father vanished years ago. Oh, no sign he ever made it to Norway. The ship never made it to Norway. But some of the securities that belonged to his father have vanished. Not vanished, have appeared on the open market. So someone must have encountered him to be able to get their hands on these, because he had all the information on him in a small book in a box. And yeah, the inspector Hopkins thinks they found their man with this. Takes him off to the station, and it's just like he must have killed him in sort of like a rage for what happened to his father. Holmes is like, this man is basically anemic. He can barely stand. There's no way he's going to drive a harpoon straight through a man in a single go.
The harpoon was embedded in the wall behind him. Does this weedy fuck look like he's up to that task?
Yeah. But how the book with his initials on it appeared in the room is he first came in and he was actually the first one to see the body. He was scared and ran off, not realizing he dropped the book, which is why the book with his initials are there.
Yeah.
Now he doesn't actually seem to have realized that he's dropped this book until it was brought up, because he's not looking for it when he breaks in. He's looking through the ship's logs. And Holmes goes, okay, looks like it's my job to save this man from the noose now and find the right neck to put the noose around. And which is connected to the Captain Basil being mentioned as Basil earlier, as Ollie mentioned, because they return to Baker Street, then tell the detective to be there the next day. Or Holmes has a telegram waiting for him at the station, and he says, "Oh, 3 candidates. Yes, tell them all to come to 221B Baker Street at 10 o'clock in the morning."
Turns out Holmes has put out an ad
for a harpooner for an Antarctic expedition. Yeah. And he interviews the 3 candidates, and he tells the first 2 basically, sorry, the berth has been filled. Here's a half sovereign for your trouble. If you wouldn't mind going through there and just waiting a moment, thank you. And he does that with the first 2, and the third one he gets into a longer conversation with, and does a bit more. And the third one is called Patrick Cairns. PC.
And this is our man.
Yeah. Holmes has already deduced that a Patrick Cairns had served aboard the ship, the Sea Unicorn, by just looking through sort of old crew records before the detective had arrived. And yeah, and they managed to essentially trick him and get a cuff him from behind, and so that he doesn't lash out as previous people they've arrested.
He gets him to bend over the table to sign the contract, and then just slips cuffs on him.
Yes, that was it. And Cairns explains the whole story, as Victorian criminals in Sherlock Holmes stories are bafflingly wont to do.
Yeah.
It is he served on the Sea Unicorn, and he saw John's father be rescued, and knew that the captain, Black Peter, had spoke to him for a long time. And then about a day or so later, John's father mysteriously vanished.
They're all
And it
bafflingly
was,
good sports once they've been caught, aren't they?
yeah,
I'll tell you
John's
everything
father,
in detail so that everything's wrapped up in a neat little package.
and I go from possibly getting the noose to definitely getting the noose. There's far too many of them where it is still sort of like supposition rather than anything else, and but they confess, so they get the noose in the end. But yeah, Cairns had in fact witnessed Black Peter throw John's father overboard after keeping his box, and decided to extort money from Black Peter, which
Well,
it,
obviously he didn't
the,
like.
yeah, it's sort of the time frame feels a little muddy in this because it's implied that it's been a few years since this happened from John's perspective of when he talks about it, but from Cairns's perspective, it's almost like they only came back into port a couple of months ago. So the time frame feels a little muddy to me
Yeah.
in this. So technically, it is possible that the ship left years ago and has only recently been back because travel at that point would have been a lot more, and it's still not, depending on sort of what they were doing. But given he was a harpooner on a ship called the Sea Unicorn, it sounds like they were doing whaling, so it seems very unlikely they'd go years without. They'd be years away without going to a port anyway. Because otherwise, well, the whales would just rot and the oil would be. Because it's a little hard to harvest whale oil on a ship, from my understanding. I could be utterly wrong, but
I have no idea how any of that works, I'll be honest.
Yeah, but yeah, but while he's there to extort money from Black Peter, Peter's mood darkens while they're drinking their rum and water, as it is, and he goes to attack Cairns with a knife that he had, which was also found on the floor at the time of the murder and confirmed by the wife to be his. So he grabs a harpoon off the wall and stabs him. Takes the box, doesn't realise he's left his smoking pouch behind, and legs it, basically. Only to find he can't actually sell the securities, because I don't think they actually say why he can't sell them, but he just can't sell them, and he's now stuck penniless. That's in a place he doesn't work, so he felt, well, okay, I'll just put my one skill to use and look for a job as a harpooner. That would also hopefully get me out of the country for a while, because I just killed a man, I don't want to be here.
Yeah.
which is it was that logic and sort of things. It's just sort of like, well, the man must have had extreme strength and practice to impale someone in a harpoon in one go. Would probably want to get out of the country for a while after killing someone. So I'm going to put an ad out for an Arctic expedition looking for a harpooner. And he figured it must have been a seaman other than like the whole harpooning thing, because the drinks that were out were rum and water, whereas seamen rarely seem to drink anything else other than that. When it comes to spirits, given that the brandy and the whiskey were untouched.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The rum.
Yeah. So it looks like Cairns is going to get the rope, but I don't think he's outright stated. John is set free and has what securities haven't been sold returned to him. Of course, they cannot reclaim the sold securities because, well, it's hard to do something like that now. Like a stock trade that wasn't authorized by you would be a similar thing nowadays, but it's hard enough to prove that that happened and then reclaim the stocks nowadays. And we have electronic trails and stuff like that. So I can't imagine it would have been particularly easy in Victorian England. Yeah, because securities aren't massively different from stocks. Indeed, stocks are, from the brief read I did earlier to affirm myself with the concept, stocks seem to be a kind of securities.
Yeah.
So, yes, once again, another perfectly sort of willing to accommodate the law criminal
Yeah.
here.
A good sport once he'd been caught.
Yeah, no, it's fair cop, sir.
Oh, all right, I'll tell you everything. Go on, then.
Consider myself guilty. Time to confess 2 crimes. Yeah, yeah. The Artful Dodger and Fagin wouldn't have done it. Oh no.
No.
Or Bill Sykes.
No, not.
Yeah.
I would say not.
We may eventually come to Oliver Twist in the classics.
Yes, we might. I've never actually read the book, you know.
I think there's a copy in my house somewhere. Might be in amongst some of my brother's stuff. Because I got Great Expectations, and I think he got Oliver Twist one Christmas.
I think I got the complete works of Charles Dickens on the Kindle sometime after getting it. So.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. It's a hard one. But yes, that is the case of Black Peter. Holmes starts vigorously stabbing. The story starts with us learning Holmes has been vigorously stabbing pigs, and ends with the son of a banker getting a load of securities.
Should probably mention, just for full context, that a pig carcass is quite close in density to a human body.
Yeah, and also bone layout for sort of like how rib cages and spine were affected as well is surprisingly similar.
Yeah, so that would actually make a surprisingly effective test for whether something would work on a human.
Yeah, though if you want to see what effect something would have on a human head, a cantaloupe is best.
A cantaloupe?
It has a very the cantaloupe has a similar density to our head due to how the brain is.
Oh, I would have thought coconut, but
the coconuts is a little too hard because a coconut can break the skull.
Oh yeah,
yeah. It's sort of like the skull is strong, but it's sort of like if you're wanting to see some effects, like something you'd know would break through bones, but you want to see like how it would affect the brain matter and like the tissue around the skull, it's the cantaloupe you go for. We're not murderers, we promise.
Why do you know that? No, I'm not going to question why you know that. We have no practical use for this knowledge, but we're quite autodidactical.
Yeah, why we know these things is we've watched too many TV programs, which utilize these things to demonstrate the points. Like
I used to watch that Deadliest Warrior when it was on, which I think was what inspired Death Battle.
Yeah, Forged in Fire was where I learnt about the pig carcass because they tested their weapons on them to determine for the.
Oh, Hawk is raiding us with a party of 4. Hello, Hawk. Thank you for the raid. I was planning on raiding out to you when we were done.
Yes, but we've still got another story to go, and we were also just talking in a way that was like, how do you know that sort of thing?
Well, not so much how as why do you know which like fruit most closely represents the effect of a human skull?
Yeah, if you need to know what happened of bowling.
Mind you, I started it with the reasoning behind the pig carcass, so.
No, that was relevant to the story.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was the story of Black Peter and some useful information if you want to test certain phenomena. Do, 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 do.
Yeah.
Phenomenon.
Phenomena.
Uh,
Oh.
but now we're on to the case of Charles Augustus Milverton, and or Magnuson if you're the BBC adaptation.
Yeah. I do picture Lars Mikkelsen when I read
Yeah,
this one
yeah.
because
Well,
that
he
was the
was very
first
good.
image. Oh yeah, he was fantastic.
Yeah. Yes, it's an unusual case, this one, actually, because he's not actually solving a mystery. He's interceding on behalf of someone who's being blackmailed.
Yeah, and in fact, the opening, Watson states, "It is years since the incidents of which I speak took place, and yet it is with diffidence that I allude to them. For a long time, even with the utmost discretion and reticence, it would have been impossible to make the facts public, but now the principal person concerned is beyond the reach of human law, and with due suppression of the story may be told such fashion as to injure no one." Now, the phrase "beyond the reach of human law," it means they're dead.
Yeah,
Like, I mean, firstly, there's no statute of limitations for murder, which we'll get to, and secondly, they said
yeah,
human law, not British law.
yeah. And nor did they say God's law,
Yeah,
which is what they are being subjected to at this point. One would imagine they're dead.
So
They sort of like they talk as if like they move around sort of like with avoiding giving dates and stuff, so you don't know the thing, and then they use the blooming victim's name throughout. So
yeah,
it's just
it's
sort
like,
of like
oh, it's fine. We waited for her to die.
yeah,
There's no harm you could do.
yeah. But the story starts with um we were out for one of our evening rambles, so they don't start exactly in 221B, but they're immediately back into 221B because they arrive and there is a card waiting for them that causes Holmes to be sort of uh, Charles Augustus Milverton, Appledore Towers, Hampstead, agent, and
Yeah,
then it says on the back, "We'll call at 6:30 CAM."
and
Um,
when asked who he is, Holmes says, and um, it's noteworthy that he thinks this of the man, given who he's dealt with, the worst man in London.
yeah,
It's like,
though we must,
sorry?
yeah, given what he's all like dealt with, murderers and stuff like that. Though we must also remember that by this point, Moriarty and what was the colonel in?
Oh, I think I know the one you mean.
Yeah, the colonel and the Sebastian Moran.
Yeah.
Colonel Moran are both dead by this point, or we assume Moran is dead because he was being charged with several murders.
Yeah,
And
which
so
would have got him the gallows.
yeah, which is just all like, given he deals with murderers regularly, to think this man is the worst man in London is quite a lot. But we must remember the two previous candidates for that title are both dead.
Yeah,
So the bar has been lowered somewhat.
perhaps it has.
Yeah, but he's still a horrible gentleman in this.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah,
and
he describes
his
basically as
well, I don't want to just turn this into a reading, but I will read out his feelings on it. Do you feel a creeping, shrinking sensation, Watson, when you stand before the serpents in the zoo and see the slithery, gliding, venomous creatures with their deadly eyes and wicked, flattened faces? Well, that's how Milverton impresses me. I've had to do with 50 murderers in my career, but the worst of them never gave me. The thing went dark.
gave me the repulsion
which I have
which
for
I have.
this fellow. And yet I can't get out of doing business with him. Indeed, he is here at my invitation. And he describes him as
Yeah.
the king of blackmailers.
Yes. He also describes how he works, which is basically he puts out the word that essentially let it be known that Charles Augustus Milverton will pay good money for private letters and stuff like that from well-to-do families.
Yeah.
Essentially is like if you don't pay your servants enough or you mistreat them, they have an outlet to take your dirty laundry to and make money. Nowadays, we call these tabloid newspapers.
Yeah. Which is why in the modern adaptation for BBC, he worked in news.
Yes, yes. Yes, there isn't. They do this one in the Elementary adaptation set in New York as well. Oh, they do him a bit differently. We'll come to that later, I think, because I think this one is possibly a good one to talk about the adaptations because, well, there's two of them that between us we know.
Yeah.
Uh,
I still haven't seen Elementary. I'll get to it.
we will get to it at some point. Yes, I know that you have quite a long list of things to watch that are
Yeah.
recommended.
Well, since I stopped watching wrestling every day, I've been working my way down it.
Yeah, but yeah, it basically Milverton pays money for letters he can use to blackmail, holds on to them until the opportune moment, and then uses them to earn even more money.
Yeah.
He just increases already swollen money bags. That's the line.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing that pisses Sherlock off because he does not need to do this.
Yeah, he doesn't need to do that. This man is doing it for the love of the game, but the game is horrible.
Yeah.
Rather like it sort of like just reminds me of some adaptations of Palpatine in the fandom or perceptions of it, where he is evil for the love of being evil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this isn't like Moriarty, who's like a dark mirror of Sherlock. This is a similar sort of doing it for the love of thing, but with something that he wouldn't even consider doing. Like, I doubt even Moriarty would take pleasure in what he's doing.
Yeah.
He'd probably do it, but he wouldn't enjoy it.
Yeah. I would not be surprised that to learn that Moriarty was getting round to getting Charles Augustus Milverton in his organisation, or conversely, was trying to avoid the man as much as possible because what if he actually had something on Moriarty?
Well, I mean, with the amount of care Moriarty took to keep himself out of the public eye, it would probably be surprisingly easy.
Yeah, that yes. Watson inquires as to what can the law do anything? Is just sort of like technically yes, but in practicality no, because who is going to A, admit to being blackmailed, or B, risk Milverton releasing what he's got on them anyway if they move against him?
Yeah, I mean, well, he actually likens the exchange to what good would getting him a few months in prison do if he destroys their entire life shortly after.
Yeah,
and that's what's kept him out of jail for so long, is that it's not worth it for anyone to hit back at him, even if they weren't scared to, which they all are.
Yeah, so we learn that why Sherlock has got in contact with him is he is working on behalf of Milverton's current target, which is Lady Eva Blackwell, the most beautiful debutante of the last season. So essentially the most eligible bachelorette, as it were.
Yes.
and he has acquired letters from her written towards uh, a young squire in the country. That the letters are best described as indiscreet. He, nowadays we'd be going, "Oh God, they got hold of my sexting log."
Yeah.
Yeah, and that is the modern equivalent. I don't know whether it would have actually gone into quite so graphic detail or not, but it's, well, to use a equivalent of the time, there was a love letter that Oscar Wilde wrote that some blackmailers got their hands on. It was him confessing his love to another man. He learnt of this before they came to get money for him. So what he did was he transformed it into. He made a poem out of it, out of the letter he'd written, so that when they tried to cover blackmail him, he went, "That's just a draft for a poem that I've already released. You have nothing, sir. Good day."
I mean,
Fantastic move, but
yeah,
it's,
yeah. I was about to say that. Oh.
yeah, but it's sort of that sort of thing. But obviously, Lady Blackwell is not a well-known poet of the era and can't do that sort of thing to get out of it. It's um so Holmes is sort of serving as a middleman to get Milverton to back off because he is demanding, trying to get the currency converter up again,
Okay.
£7,000 for these letters to be returned.
£7,000 in 1905, is it still?
Yes, that's the assumption we're working with.
Yep. £7,000 in today's money is equivalent to £755,623.97.
So yeah, just £750,000
Yeah.
for some letters.
Yeah. That is an obscene amount of money.
Yeah. And there's so is a scene, and Milverton arrives shortly thereafter. After this, and they don't like him. A man of 50, large intellectual head, round, plump, hairless face, perpetual frozen smile, and two keen grey eyes which gleam brightly from behind broad gold-rimmed glasses. Is yeah, but it's like, while he seems like perfectly non-threatening and almost Mr. Pickwick's benevolence in his appearance, no idea who Mr. Pickwick is, assuming a figure of the time who is well trusted. It is marred only by the insincerity of his smile and the hard glitter of those restless and penetrating eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh god, I can picture the smile.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to. I don't know if you can get this on the screen. It's probably far too late. I should have done this earlier. But there is actually, I found a picture of what he looked like or the picture that went with the story when it was published. So I'm just sending that to you. That's sort of what he looked like and the sort of smile he had.
Let's see if I can't make that happen.
Yes, this is an illustration by Sidney Paget, who seemed to do all the illustrations for the Strand magazine for the Sherlock Holmes stories. At least I've been able to see.
Yeah. Alright, let's see if I can't get that up. Add source. Image. Image file. Okay. Sorry, this will just take a second.
Yeah. But
There
there's
it
a
is.
thing. Yeah.
I'll make it a little bigger so that's what he supposedly looks like.
Yeah,
Or,
that's the drawing they did of him when
I could see Jim
the story
Broadbent in his day playing him.
went. Yeah, yeah. He doesn't have quite sort of like the charm of a Mickelson to him.
No, I'll leave that up just cause went to the trouble of putting it there.
Um, but yes, Holmes and Milverton have a bit of back and forth on the money because he's saying that Lady Blackwell does not have that kind of money that you're asking to. The best she can do is £2,000,
Yeah.
which
I
is
mean,
probably just over 200,000.
yeah. Well,
We'll get an exact total in a moment.
yeah. £2,000 equates in today's money to £215,892.56.
Yeah, so still not a bad level of money. But yeah, they decide not. He's just sort of like, oh no, no, that won't do. And Sherlock's like, but wouldn't some money be better than no money? What good is breaking the match? Because the Lady Blackwell is due to be married shortly thereafter, like in the next few. Milverton's deadlines to not release them's like in the next few days. And Holmes is like, surely some money is better than just breaking a match and no money. And it's just sort of like, oh no, if she doesn't pay up, it'll be possibly worth more than £7,000 to me because it will show others that I mean business and will make them more willing to comply with my suggestions.
Yeah, like he'd like the money, but he'll settle for making an example of her.
And she comes across as a particularly good example to be made.
Yeah,
Because she, as I said, was the most eligible bachelorette basically of the last year. If he's perfectly willing and able to ruin her match to a good, I believe, noble family, then what hope does anyone else have if they've got things over her, over them?
yeah,
So, having failed to reach an agreement, uh, Milverton leaves after though there is a brief scuffle before he leaves because he pulls out a notebook book to look in it, and Holmes basically jumps on it. Let me see what you've got there, trying to take it off him. And Milverton's like, "Do you really think I'm stupid enough to bring the letters with me and store them in a notebook?"
yeah,
No, no, no. you do you do me too little credit there.
yeah. And Watson tried to like restrain him, but he flashed a gun, and it's like,
Yeah. And there's also like, did you also think I would have come armed?
yeah. So after a bit of deliberation, Holmes decides, fuck it, burglary.
Yeah. He's concluded there's nothing the law can do, and he's been taking on to do whatever must be done to stop this. So it's like, right, and he goes, "Oh, I always thought I'd make a good criminal if I didn't put my efforts into this. Yeah, time to find out." And
Also, he does say, Watson, I gather you don't consider me a marrying man. He goes, well, no. Well, it might interest you to know that I'm engaged to Charles Augustus Milverton's
yeah,
housekeeper under a different name.
yeah, yes.
Which is probably
Between
one of the cruelest things he's ever done for a case, honestly.
yeah, which is we'll come back to that when we talk on the adaptations a bit. But Yeah, the way we've said it makes it sound like the failure to get the letters and the decision, right, burglary, was within a couple of hours.
No.
No, it's near enough all of the time left before Milverton's deadline, which is a few days.
Yeah.
Which, yes, engagements really moved fast back in the day.
Yeah. But it
But
was
he's
to case the joints, so to speak.
yeah, case the joint and learn Milverton's habits. It's and also get and get the layout of the house and stuff. Determines that Milverton generally goes to his chambers around 8:30 to 9 o'clock. So he's a I would say he's a bit of sort of like goes to bed early, rise early, but there was sort of I remember reading the concept and I did encounter it in a book from the period as well first, rather than just something I saw on the internet. The two sleeps, where actually like you would get up around, be awake around 12 again, and potter about for a few more hours before going back to bed. Like that is actually part of where the idea of uh, nighttime is the time for sex comes from in a lot of literature, is because in between the two sleeps was seen as a perfect time to try and conceive an heir.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's I don't know how common it is and how much of it is it appeared in stories and we've put it on
Wait.
as an actual thing that goes on.
Is that why I always wake up in the early hours if I go to sleep before like 11 or 12?
It's possible. It's like some humans are wired that way. I would say it's hard to say how much of it is accurate and how much is sort of like being put on the Victorians from some sources at the time, and then gone. Everyone in the Victorian era did this, because I somewhat doubt it was necessarily true for farmers who would be up at the time in which supposedly they'd be looking to go second sleep, time to go back to bed. And stuff like that. But yeah, so Holmes has got engaged to case a joint, which you can't fault the man's devotion to his cause.
No, you can fault him for being a callous bastard in the doing of it.
Yeah, there is that. And he goes, right, burglary time. Excellent. And Watson's like, I'm not going to let you do this, Watson, unless you let me come with you. Oh, all right. Let us burgle together.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Holmes just happens to have black silk to make face masks for it. And before you think, are they going to do like a full face mask so you can't see it? No, they are literally covering their eyes like Robin. It is just sort of.
I love the bit where he's showing off his new burglary kit.
Yeah, it's equipped with all the latest in burglary gear, which is just sort of like lockpicks, files,
glass cutters,
a dark lantern, and stuff like that. It's just sort of like, yes, excellent, my burglary kit. It's just sort of like, this isn't the first time, is it? I get the idea that he has this because it helps him get into the mindset of the common criminal, but also a person who has a completely up-to-date burglary kit is probably not a common criminal.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he and Watson go off for a jolly evening's burglary. Yeah, and they make it in. Holmes has worked out the best route in, and sort of like where the safe is, which is in a study which is just offers Milverton's bedroom.
Yeah, he should be in bed now, but he isn't.
Yeah, they get in and they're working on it, and Watson has a moment of, this door should be locked. It's not. And Holmes has a moment of concern from that. But he's just cracked the safe and got it open. And then they hear something as, we We made an assumption, and assumptions make an ass out of you and me.
Yeah.
And so Holmes, having just got the safe open, quickly swings it shut, and he and Watson retreat to previous hiding spots that they had identified, which was they are hiding behind the curtains pressed up against the window.
Brilliant.
And give the sort of like a posher house, a manor house sort of thing. So there's a garden with a wall from the rest of, keeping it hidden from the rest of London. and Milverton comes in and is now sitting in the chair by the safe, reading a legal document of some sort. And Watson then notices that the safe is slightly open, and if Milverton notices, they're rumbled.
And he's making plans to, the word he uses is pinion him.
Yeah. But Holmes grabs him to stop him at this point, and there's a knock at the side door, the one that should have been locked and they both noted was unlocked. And a woman comes in, and Milverton is expecting her. It's awful bad luck, their sense of timing, it seems. And she's apparently carrying letters that belong to a countess. I'm trying to remember. Yeah, a countess, and she's willing to sell them because they hold blackmailable material. And he's going in. Yeah. Well, yes. Now we just need to discuss the price, and then she lifts up the veil she's been wearing, in for that, and he goes, "It's you." And it's just. She says something of that sort of along the lines of "for my husband," and then shoots him
several times. So she empties a revolver into his chest.
Yeah, and Watson is sort of like wanting to jump out and sort of stop her because instincts of the law. And Holmes grabs his hand and the sort of interlaced knuckles and to stop him. He's just sort of like, the first homoerotic clue.
Yeah.
Oh, God. I'm going to have to step out for a moment. I won't be long. Sorry.
No problem. I'll keep it going. Yeah, the person in question was... Oh, I can't remember the name. Give me a second. The face was going on... It is I, the woman whose life you have ruined. Yeah, it doesn't, Yeah, the implication is that it's, the Countess that he was interceding on behalf of at the beginning of the book, but she's never, now that I look at it, she's never explicitly named as such.
What have you said to update?
Oh, is that... it's implied that this was the client Holmes was interceding on the behalf of, but looking at the text again now, she's never explicitly named as such, just the woman whose life he's ruined. Which, like, yeah, I guess for the wording in the thing could be any number of people.
Yeah, I believe, from what they said is she is the widow of a good man who's died, whereas the client hasn't married yet. So it's someone else who he's done, from what I've saw of it. And supposedly a well-known enough figure for a bit that happens at the end, which we'll say there.
Yeah.
But I did also think when I first thought about it that it was the client as well. But presumably Watson would have known what she looked like, but given the client was named at the beginning, it seems a bit strange to have them named and then be all secretive at the end.
So she
And
empties a revolver into this fucker's chest, and then, well,
and then Scarpa's out of there.
yeah. Watson
And
notes that there was nothing they could have done to help the man, even if they were inclined to, and Holmes just destroys all of his blackmail material by chucking it in the fire.
yeah, the first thing he does, he just grabs 2 armfuls of documents after throwing the safe open again, throws them in the fire, and just keeps going until it's empty. Which I think, given like how much the man had like blackmail material and the fact it took more than one double armful for, we're talking like a more 4 foot high safe rather than what a lot of us would probably think of as a safe.
Yeah, I was thinking a wall safe.
Yeah, this seems to be a freestanding about 4 foot, it's possibly a couple of feet wide safe, given that how many documents seem to be in there.
Yeah.
But that may also be because I've played far too much Hitman Freelancer, and that's the size of the safes that have the Mercers in. But different stream entirely for that one. But they've locked the door from the study into the main house when they came in a while ago. So the people are starting to get there now because 6 revolver shots. The household has heard that because he has staff. Sherlock is engaged to one of them.
Yeah.
We don't know whether that engagement actually survives the death of an employer or not. It's literally not mentioned again at the end of the story, and I'd be surprised if it's mentioned later.
Yeah. So they got a Scarpa. Someone grabs hold of Watson, but he manages to get away. And once they're back in 221B, the police arrive to enlist their aid in solving the murder of Charles Augustus Milverton.
The police arrive the next morning to do the murder. They've actually done a fair bit of work, and this is where you get the description. I think Holmes made a bit of a mistake actually in something he did, because they took the key out of the lock to then lock it from the outside to slow down pursuit and make it look like a locked room mystery. I think Holmes still had the key at this point, so oops, he's made a bit of classic criminal error. He's kept something he shouldn't have.
Yeah.
But they give Lestrade gives a description of the one who the groundskeeper managed to grab the leg of, which was Watson, who then kicked him to get free. And Holmes, in sort of what is from Lestrade's perspective meant to be sort of like, oh, that description could be anyone, says, oh, that could have been a description of Watson. And the reader gets a slight chuckle because it is a description of Watson.
Yeah.
It's also how we know that, like, how little of their face were covered by the mask, because they describe
the moustache,
the shape of the chin, the style of his like haircut and stuff, and his eye colors as well. Near enough, it's just sort of like, and how his hair is cut. So it's just sort of like, well, James, you might as well have not bothered.
Yeah. And then he declines to investigate the murder because he straight up says to Lestrade, my sympathies are with the criminals on this one, and yeah, I've no interest in taking the case. Which, to my mind, would smack Lestrade of something suspicious. Because he's just pointed out that the description matches Watson, and he's declining to investigate while saying that he hated the man.
Yeah, but Lestrade has also said that the Yard has been keeping an eye on him, has not been able to do anything about him. So I'm thinking this is sort of like, so we're in a gentleman's agreement of these two, that this murderer is not going to be found without so many words.
Yeah, we will never speak of this again.
Yeah, also, by the suggestion, they don't mention, obviously, because it gives the game away, that there was a woman there just before. So Scotland Yard were never going to find the killer because they're looking for 2 men. And it's a sort of like they're missing a key piece of evidence which Sherlock could provide, but as he says, his sympathies are with the criminals on this one.
Yeah.
Um,
And
um,
yeah,
yeah, and
that's basically the end of the story.
yeah, there's a short bit where Holmes is just like a bit later in the day. Of course, come with me, Watson. And they go into town to a shop which has in the window photos of celebrities and notable people. And he points to one of them, and Watson recognizes her as the one who shot Milverton. And it says, it's got a description underneath that lists sort of a deceased noble husband and stuff. So, but he doesn't give any details, and there isn't sort of like I've had to look around. There isn't sort of a theoretical figure that this character could be based on from real life. I've just so there's not like a scandal of this is something that may accidentally shine badly upon on an actual real life figure, which is why we've not named them.
Yeah.
Yeah, this isn't so much Holmes solving a crime as opposed to committing several of them.
And witnessing another.
Yeah.
Also,
And
like,
deciding,
add destruction of evidence to that list because he literally did that.
yeah, breaking, entering, and destruction of evidence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I guess conspiracy as well because it was clearly premeditated.
Yeah.
The masks.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
We shall obscure our cheekbones, Watson.
I don't think they even really did that. We should disguise the bags under our eyes. Nothing more. Yeah. But an interesting fact of this one, a lot of these stories do have a basis in sort of the criminal goings on in London at the time. Arts mimicking real life to an extent. But there was a figure called Charles Augustus Howell, who was an art dealer who was known as who was also a considerable blackmailer, and was died in strange circumstances in 1890.
Interesting.
Yeah, though he was found in the street with a street. His throat had been cut posthumously, and there was a coin in his mouth. So, the theory at the time,
I mean, 10 out of 10 for theatrics.
Yeah, the theory at the time for the presence of the coin in the mouth, from brief research I did, is that it's a criticism of those accused of those guilty of slander, not accused of slander. So it's essentially slanderer, blackmailer, bastard, general sort of thing. But thought to have been a sovereign or half sovereign, the coin in question. So not a small bit of change to drop on this message.
Yeah.
Either. But
this is easily the least complete Sherlock Holmes story we've done this week, but it's also the one I think it would be the one I liked the most.
Yeah, it was something different as opposed to the somewhat formulaic. He was meeting up against someone who he couldn't beat, he couldn't turn the law against, which is what he did with Moriarty, because he couldn't beat them, but he could get the law against them. And it's just sort of like these two avenues were down. It was someone who matched him, but because of amorality rather than genius.
Yeah.
Sort of like I have it. It's interesting, sort of like the adaptations of it, because the BBC made him a foreigner influencing the entire government,
By
which
working
I
in
can't.
tabloid journalism.
Yeah, well, also just having all the blackmail material on the nobility as well, thanks to working in tabloid journalism and like the halls of power. Though they do in that one, they adapt him to sort of revel in his power that he holds over people more openly than he does in this story.
Yeah.
He well, for example, they have him pissing in the fireplace of 221B Baker Street to make a
Saying
point.
he'll do something in England, and if it works there, he'll try it in a real country.
Yeah, and it's just sort of like,
I mean, you could read that as a critique of Rupert Murdoch.
yeah. I mean, I imagine that Murdoch has been merged with the version somewhat for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's sort of like they both reach the same conclusion. Like both versions of Sherlock reach the same conclusion of right, we're going to burgle him.
Yep. And
But
including in at least the BBC version, Sherlock getting engaged to get into his office. But then it's Mary Watson who shoots him in that version, who is still alive at that point, and not. Well,
no, Mary Watson doesn't shoot Magnuson. Mary Watson shoots Sherlock.
oh yeah. Sorry, no. Sherlock shoots him in the face later.
Yeah, well, like Mycroft and several
Attack helicopters.
attack helicopters and police officers are looking right at Sherlock.
Yeah. Like once he learns that there is no actual evidence, he just remembers everything, and all he has to do is print it because he works in news and no one's going to question it. Which, is actually kind of a salient point.
It's also a bit on his blackmail victims. He just needs to be able to tell them a bit of what's in the document, and they'll believe he has them.
Yeah.
And which is a fair way to do it. It's sort of like not saying it's a good thing to do,
but as soon as he finds out that there is no actual physical evidence against anyone, he just shoots him in the face and removes the problem.
Yeah.
Which,
which undermines
it works.
It works. But I must say, one of my favorite episodes of Elementary, and it took far too long to click that this was an adaptation of it, is the Elementary version of this, where there is a Charles Milverton. They miss out Augustus, and I'd only encountered him as Magnuson before.
Right.
And he is a blackmailer who is applying it on a scale that makes this guy and the tabloid version actually look quite petty, sort of like in terms of enriching himself, not in terms of holding the reins of power. And it does not matter who it is, and he actually discussed Sherlock somewhat to an incredible amount. Now that he describes this as the line of, in many ways, this man is more repugnant to me than murderers could ever be. The case was brought to his attention because his sobriety sponsor's own sponsor or former sponsor is being blackmailed by Milverton with a video of the brutal rape of his daughter. And he's not the only one going on. Yeah. And he's also blackmailing the rapist as well, who's in prison. And if it gets out exactly, because a couple of these girls were underage, not by much, but were still underage. If it gets out that that's why he's in prison, he's going to be killed by other prisoners.
Yeah.
Which I'm I was going to say I'm not sure how accurate that is to real life versus the trope of it, but then I remember uh, hearing quite a brutal reprisal story of someone who was in for assaulting a child. So
Yeah.
probably some. Um, they have Sherlock witness the murder again, but he then works with the police to have the news of the murder quietened down for a bit because he's learned something much more worrying. Uh, how he protects himself from being charged because he's not subtle with his identity. Holmes works it out in a few minutes. It's of actual, not like minutes of episode time since finding out that, minutes of investigative time, which we don't see,
Yeah.
is because he has a failsafe, a partner who will release the materials if he's ever arrested or anything, in to make it so that's there. He's trying to work out whether the failsafe is real or not. He nicknamed him Henry VIII because he is incredibly fat, his failsafe,
Ah.
and makes a living as a professional fat man, as it were, which is you sue companies for like having airlines for not being able to accommodate you, cinemas, stuff like that. And then you take the first offer they give because courts, you'll get nothing. It's nuisance suits by a professional fat man.
Right.
So he's tracking down the failsafe, and then Milverton's murder comes out, and he's sort of like, well, shit. And then the material doesn't come out, but a request for more money does. So he works out that there's someone who has somehow been even more disgusting than Milverton, which is someone else who figured out was Milverton, decided they were going to take care of him, also took care of the failsafe, and then decided to just take over the business with his brother serving as the failsafe. And note, this was the father of one of the other girls who was raped, who's decided to do this. So, yeah,
Yeah.
I managed to make it worse.
Oh
Yeah,
God. Yeah.
yeah. So, they get
The
quite a
other
lot
two
out.
were quite formulaic at this point, like in the way
Like,
that these sort of stories have sort of become.
yeah,
Like,
no, I suppose that is sort of like the side effect of we'd see them all quite close together,
yeah,
whereas like these would have been coming out like a couple of months in between, and like the final problem to Hound of the Baskervilles had over a year. Hound of the Baskervilles to the Empty House had,
yeah,
I think, 2 years between it.
yeah. I
Yeah,
did
so
enjoy some of the deductions. They were clever, like the horseshoes and harpooning a pig at the beginning as
yeah,
like a foreshadowing device was fun.
they have
But
quite a
this the last one was much more interesting to me.
yeah. There's been a bit of a different flourish in the last couple, or is like, but it still follows a similar formula. But then again, it's being produced for a magazine with presumably a word limit, so there's only so much you can
Yeah,
do to mess with it, especially as people are wanting the mysteries that Sherlock is solving, and they're wanting the how did he do it sort of thing, or how did he work it out.
yeah, yeah. So I think that's about it this week, isn't it?
Yes. So
All right, next week something a little different. Uh, this is going to be rebranded as Tome Raider Classics. Tome Raider just by itself will return next week with something a little more contemporary, but still, well, not exactly modern because 90s, but
yeah, it's not hot off the shelf
yeah,
or
no.
hot off the press, is it?
I have started reading them because I read a couple in school, and I think Dan would enjoy them. We're gonna try starting something else next week. We're going to do book 1 of the Animorphs series called The Invasion by K.A. Applegate. And we're going to alternate week to week, I think, is the plan. So in 2 weeks, we'll have the next 3 Sherlock Holmes stories. Next week, Animorphs The Invasion. We may continue that series. We may, well, depending on...
I think we'll do a few Animorphs and then maybe break it up a bit, because there are 54 of them, so that is sort of
like none of them are particularly long, but if we're doing 1 a week, that's still a year of streams.
Yeah, just over of it, which of course with the classics will be over 2 years of streams.
Yeah. And of course, there'll be plenty of classics after Sherlock Holmes to get to as well.
Like I suggested before we started, we go on to Agatha Christie, and they went, yeah, but she wrote more short stories than Doyle wrote novels, and more novels than Doyle wrote short stories. and the man wrote about 60 short stories.
Yeah. So yeah, thanks for listening. Thanks, Dan, for being my co-host on these. I don't get to talk about books with enough people. Thanks to Hawk for the raid earlier. That was very much appreciated. And we will see you next week with the first Animorphs book.